Some people buy real estate for the view, but I bought the entire hill overlooking the most miserable HOA in the county for absolute, unadulterated sweet revenge. Hit that subscribe button right now, because watching an arrogant neighborhood tyrant realize that the person who owns the land directly above her luxury mansion controls her water, her drainage, and her entire standard of living is the most satisfying story you will hear all year. My name is Marcus, and for 5 long years, the board members of Whispering Pines Estates treated my family farm at the base of their valley like their personal dumping ground. They complained about our tractors, they harassed our farmhands, and the worst of them all was the board president, Victoria Sterling, who believed her gated community made her royalty. Your dusty old farm ruins the luxury aesthetic of our neighborhood, Marcus, Victoria sneered during our final driveway confrontation. You either pave it, clean it up, or sell it to us for pennies. I didn't yell. I didn't argue back. I just smiled, walked away, and quietly called my real estate attorney. You see, Victoria and her wealthy neighbors forgot one fundamental rule of geography. Water flows downhill, and whoever owns the high ground holds all the cards. 3 weeks later, the dusty old farm was still mine, but the massive, sprawling hilltop plateau overlooking their entire multi-million-dollar subdivision? That now belonged to me too. And the moment the deed cleared county records, the entire ecosystem of Whispering Pines was about to experience a very rude awakening. Owning the hill above a luxury subdivision isn't just about having a great view of the sunset, it's about controlling the very foundation of their daily lives. Hit that notification bell right now, because the moment Victoria realized what was sitting directly above her master bedroom suite, her blood ran completely cold. When the Whispering Pines subdivision was originally carved out of the valley 20 years ago, the developer cut massive engineering corners. Instead of building an independent municipal runoff and drainage grid, they quietly routed the entire hillside's storm runoff, natural spring flow, and emergency overflow channels straight across the upper ridge, which happened to be a private agricultural right-of-way. For 2 decades, the HOA used my newly acquired hilltop plateau as their personal drainage sponge, completely free of charge and without a single shred of legal easement documentation. On a crisp Monday morning, just 4 days after the title transfer was finalized, I loaded up my utility tractor, hooked up a heavy-duty industrial grader, and drove straight up to the crest of the hill. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. It was an unknown number, but I already knew exactly who was on the other end. I let it ring out, stepping down from the tractor cab to look down into the valley below. From up here, Victoria's sprawling Mediterranean-style mansion looked like a tiny toy house, completely exposed to the elements. She thought she ruled the valley from behind her iron gates. She had no idea she was living at the bottom of a bowl, and I had just walked away with the spoon. My phone buzzed again, vibrating relentlessly against my work jacket pocket as Victoria desperately tried to breach my defenses. I finally swiped the screen, and her furious, breathless voice instantly blasted through the speaker before I could even say a hello. "Marcus, what on earth do you think you're doing up there?" Victoria shrieked, the sound of wind whistling through her phone suggesting she had sprinted right out onto her balcony. "Heavy machinery is strictly prohibited within sight of our architectural zone. Get those tractors off the ridge right now, or I am calling the county sheriff for trespassing and civil code violations." I calmly leaned against the fender of my tractor, letting out a slow, deliberate breath. "Good morning, Victoria," I replied, my voice cool and even. "You might want to check your neighborhood plat maps before you start throwing around words like trespassing. I am standing right in the middle of my own private agricultural acreage." A sharp gasp echoed on the other end of the line. "That hill is community watershed territory," she fired back, her voice cracking with sudden panic. "The developer's master covenant explicitly." The developer's master covenant was built on an expired handshake agreement and 0 registered easements, I interrupted, cutting her off cold. "In fact, your association has been illegally dumping storm runoff and erosion onto my private land for over 20 years without my permission." Silence stretched across the line, heavy and suffocating. What are you talking about?" Victoria whispered, the arrogant corporate bite completely draining out of her voice. "I'm talking about drainage, Victoria," I said, looking down at the massive natural depression curving right toward her backyard. and right now, that natural channel is holding back thousands of gallons of stormwater. It would be a real shame if a sudden heavy rainstorm hit this valley, and I decided to redirect the flow straight down your patio. Victoria's breath hitched, the chilling realization of her absolute vulnerability crashing down on her like a physical blow. You wouldn't dare, she stammered, her voice trembling with sheer terror as she looked out from her balcony toward the towering ridge line. That's illegal. That's environmental sabotage. The association will sue you into the Stone Age. Sue me for what? I replied smoothly, adjusting the controls on my industrial grader. Using my own land for agricultural irrigation and terracing? Feel free to call the county inspectors, Victoria. But while they're up here reviewing your lack of drainage easements, they'll also notice that your entire southern retaining wall has been bleeding toxic pool runoff directly onto my soil. I paused, letting the heavy silence sink deep into her bones. So here are your choices, I continued, my voice hardening. Option 1. You and your rubber stamp board resign by sundown, issue a public apology for years of harassment, and pay for every single penny of crop damage your runoff caused my family. Option 2. I drop this industrial blade right now, open up the northern diversion trench, and turn your backyard swimming pool into a muddy koi pond. Marcus, wait, let's be reasonable, she cried out, her powerful corporate facade completely shattered into a million pieces. We can discuss this at the next board meeting. Please don't touch that water. The meeting is right now, Victoria, I said coldly. With a deliberate flick of my wrist, I dropped the heavy steel blade into the damp earth, watching the dark soil curl up against the edge. By Wednesday morning, the Whispering Pines HOA didn't just have a new leadership team, they had a completely vacant presidential chair. Victoria Sterling resigned from the board in total disgrace before the sun even finished rising, packing her luxury SUV and fleeing the neighborhood to avoid the crushing financial liabilities of the association audit. The remaining board members didn't fight back. Instead, they unanimously signed a binding legal agreement apologizing for years of harassment, paying full restitution for our farm's crop damages, and permanently surrendering any claim to my hilltop acreage. As for the hill itself, it remains untouched, peaceful, and entirely mine. Every single evening, I walk out onto my front porch with a warm ceramic mug of coffee, looking up past the valley toward the magnificent ridge line standing tall against the sunset. Down below, the multi-million-dollar mansions of Whispering Pines sit quietly behind their iron gates, now painfully aware of a very simple, timeless truth of the land. You can build all the walls you want, but you can never escape the person holding the high ground.